The IC continues to assess that Iran is not building a nuclear weapon, and Supreme Leader Khamenei has not authorized the nuclear weapons program that he suspended in 2003.
That was Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard testifying to House lawmakers in 2025 on global threats facing the U.S.
That testimony was in turn the subject of a Piers Morgan debate with former British broadcaster and at one time an MP, George Galloway. That went completely off the rails. Let's watch the back and forth.
Well, I believe Tulsi Gabbard.
Why do you believe Iran?
No, I'm believing Tulsi
given that
Gabbard
the Atomic
here.
Agency,
I'll come on to Iran.
Given that the Atomic Agency...
Why do you want to dodge Tulsi Gabbard?
Talking. You've talked and talked and talked. Let me get a question in. As we speak, that outside of Iran, there has been no independent verification of what you are saying. So
it's
you are
on
believing...
television,
So
Piers.
you are believing the
it's
words
on
of
television.
the Iranian...
But I'll tell you what, Piers, you're a busted flush.
You know what, George? We're about to pass 4 million subscribers on Piers Morgan Uncensored, and you're walking off because you can't handle the heat.
When CNN's Caitlin Collins asked President Trump Tuesday about Tulsi Gabbard's testimony, he said, "I don't care what she said. I think they, Iran, were very close to having a weapon." Politico is reporting that Trump was apparently incensed after Gabbard had uploaded a video on X warning about the dangers of nuclear war. That video had been uploaded after Trump met with pro-Israel hawks who were urging him to support Israel's attacks on Iran. The outlet writes, "In the eyes of Trump and some close to him, Gabbard was warning him not to greenlight Israel attacking Iran. Trump even expressed his disapproval to her personally," the three people familiar with the episode said.
In a statement obtained by News Nation, Vice President J.D. Vance said Tulsi's a veteran, a patriot, a loyal supporter of President Trump, and a critical part of the coalition he built in 2024. She's an essential member of our NatSec team, and we're grateful for her tireless work to keep America safe from foreign threats. Trump should not besmirch Tulsi. He should listen to her, because on this topic, she is more attuned to his base. Now, Trump, I never want to disparage his political instincts, which are very good, regardless of what you think of his policies or his behavior or anything else about him. He seems to know what his base wants and listens to it. And I think he does instinctively know here on foreign policy. I played a clip in my radar yesterday of him attacking George W. Bush for the Iraq War back in 2016 when he ran. He's in danger of getting embroiled in a conflict. Israel's government is working very hard to involve the U.S. in this. They are very good at this. And so he should be listening to Tulsi, who pointed out the incomplete nature of the Iranian nuclear project. And so I'm glad to see J.D. Vance sticking up for her. J.D. Vance seems to do a good job of managing all different factions of MAGA and conservatives and defending Trump publicly, but behind the scenes doing a little bit of work to keep the administration on his vision, which I don't always agree with, but on foreign policy I very much do agree with. It'll be interesting to see when he's in charge of the coalition if things run more smoothly. But I don't know. It could be. I hear some rumors that Tulsi's not long for this world. That could be the case. I very much hope that's not the case, because I think on this subject she's a very good influence on MAGA. What do you think?
I think the parallel that you drew between George W. Bush and Iraq is very instructive in this case, because obviously one of the main justifications given for the invasion of Iraq was weapons of mass destruction, which proved not to be there. And what Gabbard is saying is broadly parallel with that, in that she's saying that it is important not to exaggerate Iran's active progress toward a nuclear weapon. And this seems to be part of a larger picture. Look, I'm not defending the Iranian regime. They have enriched uranium to a very high level. It is certainly possible that they aspire to have nuclear weapons.
Days away. They're just days away. We've been hearing for my entire life.
Exactly. For at least a decade and more. And Benjamin Netanyahu has wanted to bomb them for about 40 years. And there has been some very good reporting about how Israel apparently has been making a particular argument that in the very recent past there were advances made that really did suggest it was imminent, and the American intelligence apparently skeptical of that. So I think in that sense, Tulsi's skepticism is important, and it is important that it be heard. And, it would be, I think, unfortunate if Trump overrode the instincts that had made him critical of Bush's conduct vis-a-vis Iraq in a way that would embroil the US in another war in Iran.
Right. It has to do with, if we could, ideally, Iran would not have a nuclear weapon. But ideally, the Chinese wouldn't have a nuclear weapon.
Right.
And the Russians wouldn't
And North
have a nuclear
Korea
weapon.
certainly wouldn't.
The ideal is not possible. So then we have to consider, what can we realistically do to prevent it? And is the cost of that worth it? Right. And I would argue that it is possible the cost is not worth it, or that it's probable, in fact, the cost is not worth trying to prevent them. More destruction of their country will, I do not think, lead to a popular uprising. I think hopes of popular uprisings are almost always naive. Look, I won't rule out that it's impossible and inconceivable. Syria had an uprising. Now, we sanctioned the crap out of Syria, and that's part of the reason there was an uprising. And now we got someone who's formerly with ISIS, who Trump's met, seems to want better relations with the U.S. and the West. I think that's a good thing. I think we should try to pull this person more into our orbit, and it's conceivable this works out, that this is better. Now, I think you were on when we interviewed a guest who had some expertise in Syria and was talking about all the atrocities against, I forget which ethnic group. Mm-hmm. So it's not all rosy and wonderful there. Sure. But maybe we can be optimistic, hopeful that this works out. But that seems to be the less likely outcome in all of these sorts of things. So what's going to happen if we do this probably is we could get a worse regime, or the regime doesn't collapse at all. Just lots of people die. They eventually get nuclear weapons anyway. They become more proximate to someone. They seek the help of Russia or China. That all seems bad. That all seems not worth pursuing. Whereas on the other side is the worst case scenario. They get nuclear weapons. Well, again, Russia and China have nuclear weapons. Russia has nuclear weapons and is invading Ukraine and didn't use them. Mm-hmm. The only country that has used nuclear weapons offensively is this one.
Sure. The topic of Tulsi Gabbard's video, incidentally.
Very much so. So in the overwhelming majority of the consequence of having nuclear weapons so far throughout human history is that they don't get used for anything. It just makes it less likely that you can be attacked.
Right.
Our allies have nuclear weapons. They don't even need them. So, okay, so how much are we willing to spend and kill to stop this result? So then you have to argue that there's something uniquely reprehensible and insane about the Iranian leadership, that even though China will not use them offensively against Taiwan and Russia will not use them offensively against Ukraine, they would use them offensively against, I'm not even sure they can reach us, but they would use them against Israel. Again, okay, you can argue that, but I think the burden is on you to demonstrate why they are more insane than I would be, or they would give them to a terrorist. They would develop this powerful technology and then they would let someone else control its use. Again, these start to be arguments that don't really stand up to scrutiny, I think.
I agree. And, it is one of those issues where often, I think to everyone's detriment, kind of sloganeering statements, we can never let them have a bomb, or we're going to stop them and we're going to bomb them and all the rest, tend to take precedence over the fact that a perhaps less, in some ways, morally compelling but effective approach has been actually deterrence and the idea of mutually assured destruction. If Iran got a bomb and used that bomb, it would know that it would be obliterated by the United States immediately. Right. That is a pretty powerful disincentive to not use that bomb. I don't love the fact that North Korea has it. I don't love the fact that Pakistan or China have it. But
and North Korea's leadership seems just as insane as anyone. Like, not even just personally insane.
Absolutely.
And they haven't used it either. They haven't used it against South Korea.
Right. So,
it tells you something.
It does, yeah. And I don't really buy the argument that you rightly say has to be made against Iran, which is that they are uniquely genocidal or uniquely inclined to pay the price of being obliterated in order to obliterate Israel first. I'm just highly skeptical of that argument and highly skeptical of where it leads.
Well, we've got a lot more to discuss on Rising right after this.